As the radiant song echoed across Azeroth, Alleria Windrunner heard only the whisper of shadow emanating from the depths of Khazalgar. The dissonance troubled her deeply, prompting a difficult decision. She chose to distance herself from her family and seek answers alone. Boarding a griffin, she soared to Dalaran, making her way to the Violet Citadel, where she was met by Khadgar. Upon her arrival, Khadgar revealed his urgent need for her insight into the void. A mysterious figure known as the Harbinger had surfaced, wielding a powerful relic, the Dark Heart. Intrigued and determined, she vowed to return with the artifact in hand. With adventurers rallying by her side, she opened a gateway to the Telegrass Rift, seeking the aid of the Riftwalkers. There, she met with Umbric, who reported unsettling disturbances in the void across Azeroth. The Riftwalkers had returned from their investigations, save for one, Riftwalker Nalara, who had vanished in Northrend. Driven by urgency, Alleria and her allies set out for Ulduar, where Nalara was last seen. What they found was betrayal. Nalara had succumbed to the void, choosing allegiance to the darkness. As they prepared to confront her, the Harbinger revealed herself, addressing them as her honored guests. With chilling certainty, she issued a challenge. If they sought the Dark Heart, they would have to take it from her by force. Despite sensing the trap, Alleria knew the risk was necessary. She stepped through the void portal left in the Harbinger's wake, only to find herself in a place she never expected, Eridath. Memories of her past surged around her, twisted in a cruel display orchestrated by her unseen adversary. The realization struck her with force. The Harbinger either harbored a deep grievance against her, or had taken a keen interest in her fate. The final memory broke what little restraint Alleria held. Before her stood the twisted apparition of Turalyon, not as she knew him, but as a weapon wielded against her, eventually confronting the memory of Turalyon itself. Yet when the moment came to strike it down, she hesitated. The weight of love, duty, and regret rooted her in place. Locust Walker, however, harbored no such reservations. He eradicated the memory without hesitation.
So it is Xal'atath who has claimed the Dark Heart. I understand now why she calls herself the Harbinger.
I've had enough riddles for one day.
The radiant visions you spoke of are the very same my people had, before our world was consumed by the Void Lord Dimensius.
What? You don't think... Could Xal'atath be seeking that same fate for Azeroth?
I fear that is precisely what she intends. You must find a way to stop her.
Me? Look, she knew exactly how to hurt me. I don't think I'm the one to...
Yes, she knew your greatest fear is endangering your family. But you must let go of that fear. Embrace who you truly are.
I know who I am.
Do you? You are unbalanced. You must master your unique nature, Alleria. If you cannot, then Azeroth is already doomed.
It's best if I leave. I'm a danger to you all, so long as Xal'atath's gaze is cast upon me. Tell Khadgar what we learned. I will return to Dalaran in time.
Xal'atath has returned as the Harbinger. I know she has the power of the Dark Heart at her disposal.
It's all connected to the Radiant Song. It has to be.
Locust Walker said the Ethereals heard a similar song before Koresh was destroyed.
Then is Azeroth herself the one in danger? Is she speaking to us?
We need answers. We need her speaker.
I will seek out Magni. But first, I must inform Thrall of what we learned here. We must face this crisis together. Horde and Alliance both.
Before embarking on her hunt for Xal'atath, Alleria sought out Eretor, hoping to dissuade him from joining the battle. She wished for her son to live a life untouched by war, free from the burdens that had long weighed upon her. She had to go to Silvermoon City where he had made his home, only to find an unexpected figure awaiting her at the gates, Lorthamar Theron. Their exchange was short, laden with unspoken history and mutual wariness. Lorthamar, ever the cautious leader, agreed to allow her entry, but only under strict guard. Alleria accepted the terms, though she had no intention of overstaying her welcome. As night descended, she slipped away into the city's heart, seeking her son's residence. Upon her arrival, another surprise awaited her. Turallion was already there. His presence, though expected in some ways, sent a pang of unease through her. When he suggested joining her in her mission, she swiftly discouraged him. She had long since learned that the paths they walked were not the same. Setting the matter aside, she invited Eretor for an afternoon stroll, hoping for a rare moment of peace. As they walked, mother and son spoke of simple things, the shifting winds of Quel'Thalas, and the quiet joys of everyday life. Yet the weight of her true purpose loomed, and eventually she broached the topic. She pleaded with him to stay away from the coming conflict, to seek a path beyond war. But Eretor, ever like his mother, refused. To abandon his duty to turn his back on those in need, it was not a path he could take. Though disappointment flickered in her heart, Alleria respected his choice. For a fleeting moment, they stood on the precipice of understanding, each accepting the other's convictions. But as the last rays of daylight faded into dusk, reality pulled her back. The agreement with Lorthamar could not be ignored. Night had fallen. With a final glance at her son, Alleria turned away, the weight of their conversation settling upon her shoulders. Her path was set, and as she disappeared into the shadows of Silvermoon, she steeled herself for the hunt that awaited. Alleria's hunt eventually led her to Argus, where she sat by a flickering campfire, lost in the labyrinth of her thoughts. The choices that had shaped her path loomed heavy in her mind. She recalled the Second War, when she and Sylvanas had fought side by side to defend Quel'Thalas against the Orcish horde. They had been inseparable then, sisters in arms, bound by duty and blood. But the growing conflict had torn them apart, sending them down very different paths in life and on death. Would she have still left Quel'Thalas had she known the fate that awaited Sylvanas? Would her sister have been spared the curse of undeath if Alleria had chosen differently? Her mind drifted further, to the moment she pledged herself to the alliance of Lordaeron, where she had found love in Turallion's unwavering faith. Together they had built a life, bringing Eretor into the world. But duty had called once more. She had left him behind in Varisa's care when she and Turallion crossed the dark portal with the Alliance expedition. The memory was bittersweet, knowing now that the next time she would see her son, he would be grown. She could not help but wonder, would she have still gone if she had known the cost? Stripping away the remnants of her old ranger armor, she reflected on the sacrifices she had made. She had cast aside her past, her home, and even her own nature in pursuit of victory. She had come to believe the only way to defeat the darkness was to embrace it. Her thoughts turned to the moment she first wielded the void. She had used it to save Turallion from the Burning Legion, but he had been horrified by what she had become. Had she known it would drive him away, would she still have chosen this path? She donned her new armor, reforged in the shadows, and let go of the doubts gnawing at her soul. Everything she had done, every sacrifice she had made, had been for a reason. There was no turning back. With unwavering resolve, she struck a void-scarred encampment, cutting down her foes with precision and fury. In the stillness that followed, she reached her final conclusion. War was sacrifice. She had sacrificed everything to keep her loved ones safe. If it came down to offering herself to ensure Azeroth's survival, she would not hesitate. In time, Alleria returned to Dalaran, arriving just as Magni Bronzebeard met with the Council of Six. She stood among the gathered leaders when they proposed an audacious plan to teleport the city to Khazalgar. The decision was made, the spell was cast, and in an instant, Dalaran was no longer where it had been. Yet something felt off. A whisper in the back of Alleria's mind warned her of unseen dangers. Following her instinct, she set out to find Khadgar. As she made her way through the streets of Dalaran, she encountered Drendon, an old acquaintance, or so she thought. The illusion shattered as he cast off his disguise, revealing himself to be none other than Xalatath, wearing the form of the long-dead Archmage. Before Alleria could react, the city erupted into chaos. Across Dalaran, portals tore open in the sky as the Nerubians of Azj-Kahet swarmed through, their chittering voices heralding an invasion. Wasting no time, Alleria took command, rallying adventurers to evacuate civilians to Krasus's Landing, where Archmage Cylindra worked frantically to teleport them to safety. The battle raged on, and as they pushed deeper into the besieged city, a sudden collapse of debris separated Alleria from her allies. Trapped, she gave a single order: find Khadgar. At the heart of Dalaran, Xalatath had already reached the Violet Citadel. There, she began siphoning the tower's arcane power, feeding it into the Dark Heart. Khadgar arrived, determined to stop her, but his spells were useless, absorbed effortlessly into the void. A series of dark orbs struck him, sending him to his knees as the Harbinger loomed over him, victory within her grasp. Then a shot rang out. Alleria had arrived, her arrows slicing through the air towards Xalatath. But the Void Wielder was faster. Before she could loose another, a wave of psychic agony crashed into Alleria's mind, forcing her to her knees. The world blurred, her strength failing her, as Xalatath's laughter echoed in the darkness. With the last of his power, Khadgar cast a final spell, not at Xalatath, but at Alleria. In an instant she was gone, teleported to the Isle of Dorn. Disoriented, she struggled to her feet just in time to witness the unthinkable. From the distant shore, she watched as Xalatath unleashed devastation upon Dalaran, obliterating the city in an explosion of arcane and void energy. Khadgar was nowhere to be seen, gone just like that. As the survivors regrouped in Dornogal, grief and guilt weighed heavily on Alleria's soul. While Thrall and Jaina left to rally the Horde Alliance, she made a different choice. Protecting others had always been her purpose, yet time and again, those she sought to save had perished. Xalatath remained free, more powerful than ever. And so, with a heavy heart, Alleria set forth once more, vowing to hunt down the Harbinger alone. Her hunt led her to the Proscenium, where the Nerubians struck again. In the chaos of battle, she fought fiercely, cutting through their ranks, but Queensguard Xerix burrowed away before she could finish him. Determined, she tracked him back to a burrow near Cinderbrew Meadery. With the city still vulnerable, they devised a strategy to draw the Nerubians away from Dornogal and into a trap at the Meadery. Baelgrim prepared Cinderbrew explosives, while Wenbrand ensured the safety of his workers. Once all was in place, Alleria lured the enemy into the ambush. As Xerix and his forces surged forward, the explosives were detonated, reducing the invading Nerubians to smoldering remnants. The battle was won, but not without cost. Baelgrim had sacrificed himself to ensure victory, and the Meadery was left in ruins. Despite their triumph, Alleria remained uneasy. Xalatath was still out there, and she knew this moment of reprieve was fleeting at best. As she steeled herself for what was to come, Anduin approached, offering his gratitude for her role in defeating Xerix.
Alleria, I heard you helped corner Xerix at the Meadery. Thank you.
The Nerubians took so much from us. I will not let them do the same to the Earthen.
They've been good allies, and gracious hosts.
A welcome surprise, given that they've been living in isolation for thousands of years.
That may not entirely be the case. I asked about why they keep calling me Arathi, and apparently an Arathi armada arrived on Khazalgar a number of years ago. They're said to have formed a settlement in the caverns beneath the island. It sounds impossible, but if it's true, I want to see it for myself. They could prove to be allies in our fight against Xalatath.
No. We've secured a measure of safety here. Don't abandon it to chase shadows in the dark.
Isn't that what you're doing?
I'm doing what I must. Hunting down every last Nerubian, following their trail back to Xalatath, and claiming vengeance for our dead.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to...
Remain in Dornogal, Anduin. Leave the shadows to me.
Her hunt eventually led her to Hallowfall, where she tracked down Siege Lord Zerash. After slaying the Nerubian, she found Anduin once more, chastising him for disobeying her orders to stay in Dornogal. Frustration simmered beneath her words, and there was no time for further argument. They regrouped with Chiron and Faerun Lothar.
What is happening?
It's Beladar, our star. It shifts between the light and this. The Dawn Towers hold back the darkness with the sacred flame, but the light always returns.
The stars are devoured, and they light a candle. You know how this ends, Alleria. Inevitably, the void consumes everything.
Show yourself, monster!
You know where to find me. Deeper in the darkness.
A sense of foreboding gripped her, and without hesitation, she moved ahead to scout the way forward. Later, Aelric Lead and the Order of the Night launched their own assault, seizing control of the Dawn Tower and corrupting its sacred flame with shadow. Alleria struck swiftly, cutting down the cultists with ruthless efficiency, demanding answers. But Aelric, like a specter in the dark, escaped before she could force the truth from him. Undeterred, she aided Anduin and Faerun in uncovering the Order's plans, tracking them to a nearby hideout. Their search was soon interrupted as monstrous shadow creatures descended upon them. While Anduin and Faerun pressed forward, delving deeper into the cult's lair, Alleria stood her ground against the horrors of the void. When they emerged, their escape was blocked by one of Xal'atath's illusions, a veil of deception meant to hinder their progress. But Alleria would not be so easily deceived. With a surge of void energy, she shattered the illusion, clearing their path back to the surface. As they ascended, the balance shifted. Beladar's glow returned, pushing back against the creeping darkness. Victory was momentary, fragile, but it was victory nonetheless. While Faerun and Anduin worked to purify the Dawn Tower's flame, Alleria remained outside, her gaze lingering on the horizon. She knew the battle was far from over. The Harbinger still waited in the shadows, and she would not rest until Xal'atath was hunted down once and for all. With the Dawn Tower cleansed, Alleria and her allies returned to Moreldar to deliver a dire warning to General Steelstrike about the Order of Knight's growing threat. With the message delivered, they found themselves granted a rare moment of respite. Seeking a brief escape from the constant weight of war, they ventured to a nearby inn. Alleria remained on edge at first, cautious of those around her, but as the night wore on, she allowed herself to relax. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she drank with her companions, sharing in fleeting camaraderie before the storm resumed. But the moment could not last. Once the drinks were finished, duty called once more. Alleria sent an adventurer to gather propaganda from the Order and deliver it to Steelstrike, while she pulled Anduin aside.
I wish you had heeded my warning and stayed in Dornogal. She is here, Anduin. The Arathi are in danger. We are in danger.
I needed to see if there were really descendants of the Arathi down here. I'm the King of Stormwind. So many human kingdoms have fallen. I needed to know if there were others.
It was still a foolish risk.
You're not the only one grappling with the voices in their head.
What have you been hearing?
Beladar, the Emperor's vision. That prophecy that drew them here. It's the radiant song I'm hearing.
You have been hearing the star?
Yes. No, not really. When I saw Beladar for the first time, I had the vision again. It's related somehow. I wish Khadgar were here. He'd know what it all meant. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to...
No, you're right. I wish he was here as well. We'll have to find our own answers.
I've gotten a look at the crystals and their key flames. It's not Azerite, but it's close enough that I think they're connected.
Then you've realized when Beladar shifted for the first time?
Their day of darkness. The same day Sargeras plunged that sword into Azeroth.
With little time to dwell on the gravity of this knowledge, she turned her attention to Steel Strike, debriefing the general on all she knew about Xalatath. But before they could plan their next move, the alarm was raised. A Cobus attack was underway at the Veneration grounds. Alleria and her allies rushed to the site, finding Aelric Lead at the center of the conflict. He was conducting a ritual, attempting to corrupt the Eternal Flame, his dark magic reinforced by the presence of Cobus warriors. With swift precision, they cut down the creatures, fueling his power, weakening his defenses. With one final strike, Alleria shattered the barrier shielding Aelric, allowing the adventurer to land the killing blow.
Alleria, what happened?
For years I've held back the void within me, worried I'd hurt my loved ones. When Dalaran fell, I didn't draw on my power, and someone dear to me paid the price. Like Alric, Xalatath thinks herself safe behind layers of shadow. She isn't. Not when I can turn their own power against her. I will do all it takes to end her threat for good.
Victory was short-lived. As they secured the Veneration grounds, another distress call reached them, this time from Livia's patients. By the time they arrived, it was too late. The town had already fallen, consumed by the relentless tide of Nerubians. Steel Strike wasted no time in giving orders. Alleria and the others were to hold off the advancing swarm while she readied the Reckoning for departure. As the survivors boarded the airship, the battle reached a fever pitch. Just as they prepared to take off, Anduin spotted a void-infused ballista aimed at them. Without hesitation, he leapt from the deck, striking down the siege weapons before it could fire. But the heroism came at a cost. Before he could escape, the Nerubians swarmed him, dragging him beneath their ranks. Determined not to leave him behind, Alleria and Farron unleashed the Reckoning's full arsenal, pushing back the enemy forces in a desperate bid to reach Anduin. But fate had other plans. As they ascended, an unseen threat struck the ship. The Reckoning trembled, spiraling down into the Whispering Chasm. They survived the crash, though not without aid. A mysterious woman had intervened, though her identity remained shrouded in secrecy. As the dust settled, Alleria wasted no time in searching for any sign of Anduin. Tracks in the dirt led south, proof that he had survived. Despite Farron's protests, she made her decision. She would find him, no matter what it took. Later, Alleria received an unexpected invitation from Anduin, requesting her presence in the City of Threads. Upon arriving, she found him engaged in conversation with Executor Nizrik. Instinctively, she drew her bow, aiming directly at the Nerubian. But before she could loose her arrow, Anduin intervened, his voice steady as he urged her to stand down. He explained his reasoning, hoping that in sacrificing himself, the light would return to him. It had not. Yet despite that, Nizrik had taken an interest in his resolve, and had diverted his prison transport. Anduin, though still unable to wield the light, was determined to help others in the way he knew best. While Alleria remained distrustful of the Nerubians, she trusted him. Nizrik then revealed the true purpose of their meeting. It was Ascendance Day, a new holiday ordained by Queen Ensarek to glorify their void-infused evolution. Across the city, Shadecasters filled the streets with messages of Ascension. To combat this, Nizrik provided them with a device that would overwrite their propaganda and reveal the truth about the so-called Ascendants. After sabotaging the Shadecasters' messages, Alleria, Anduin, and an adventurer moved to observe Ansarek's speech, while Nizrik prepared their escape route. Standing amid the crowd, Alleria felt the familiar pull of the void around the Queen. It did not take long for her to reach a conclusion. Ansarek was yet another pawn of Xalatath. As they turned to leave, an icy dread settled over her. The Harbinger was near. Then she saw her, standing beside the Queen, her presence as suffocating as ever. Without hesitation, Alleria knocked an arrow and fired at Xal'atath. Anduin shouted in protest, but the shot had already been released. Xal'atath did not so much as flinch. With a flicker of movement, she dodged effortlessly. The arrow embedded itself into the ground before Enserek. Enraged, the Queen declared them assassins and ordered their capture. They had no choice but to flee. As they raced through the city, Anduin demanded to know what she had been thinking. Her answer was simple: she had to take the shot. For Dalaran, for Khadgar, for everyone lost to Xal'atath's machinations. But there was no time for debate. They reached the flyers Nizrik had prepared for their escape, only to find their path blocked. KX, Fang of the Queen, intercepted them, slaying their flyers before they could board. Forced into battle, they fought fiercely, ultimately defeating the Fang. But it was too late. The Nerubians closed in around them, cutting off all escape routes. Alleria made the call. There was only one way out. She ordered Anduin and the adventurer to jump from the waterfall. They hesitated, but there was no other choice. One by one, they leapt into the depths below. Then Xal'atath appeared. She did not attack. She did not need to. Instead, she taunted Alleria, weaving her words like poison. She spoke of how Alleria always pushed away those closest to her. The Harbinger urged her to embrace her true nature, to give in to the darkness fully, to sever all ties to those she once loved. For a moment, the weight of her words pressed down upon Alleria like a suffocating fog. Then she made her choice. She struck Xal'atath with a decisive punch, silencing her taunts, and leapt from the waterfall, reuniting with Anduin and the adventurer below. As she gathered herself, Anduin asked her what Xal'atath truly wanted from her. She took a steady breath, the clarity settling over her. The Harbinger wanted her to forsake everything, to surrender to the void entirely. But in that moment, Alleria realized she didn't have to choose between the void and her family. She could walk both paths. She would walk both paths. Upon returning to the Weaver's lair, they informed Widow Arachne of all that had transpired. A decision was made. Arachne, Anu Bazal, and Nizrik forged an alliance, forming the Severed Threads. With new allies at their side, they returned to the surface to debrief their forces. Upon returning to Dornogal, Alleria came to a sobering realization.
My grief and rage were deafening. I thought the only way to silence them
was to hunt down those responsible. I know what that's like. To survive an atrocity and feel like vengeance is all you have left.
Or to think you could have stopped what happened, if you had just seen what was right in front of you.
That pain, that guilt. I felt it twisting me into someone I'm not. But I assure you, I have found my way back from the edge. And I am here, with you, to the end.
It's good to have you with us, Alleria.
We're all in this together.
That we are. The time will come when I must face Xal'atath again. But when I do, it will be for the right reasons.
Her moment of reflection was soon interrupted by Moira Therasan, who arrived with urgent news. Thrall and Jaina had returned, bringing with them the combined forces of the Horde and the Alliance. The armies of Azeroth had answered the call. Not long after, she reunited with Turalyon.
Alleria, when I heard about Dalaran, I would have come sooner. I wanted to. But the state of the world right now, the Radiant Song...
It's all right, Turalyon. You don't... We each have our responsibilities to bear. Truth be told, if you had seen me as I was, what I had started to become...
I should have been there for you.
You were. More than you could ever know.
We stood together for 1,000 years. I'll stand by you for 1,000 more.
And the next time I push you away?
I wait. Until you ask me to come back.
but it's a good thing I always do.
I've missed you, Alleria. And I'm not going anywhere.
I know. We stand together, Turalyon. Here and now.
As the Horde and Alliance began training the Earthen for battle, Alleria saw the need for more. She tasked their adventurers with restoring the legendary Storm Riders. Their efforts bore fruit when Lucilla successfully brought back the Stormrook and formed a new Storm Rider order. Alleria stood alongside her allies as the Earthen cast aside their ancient edicts and officially pledged themselves to the war against Xal'atath and the Nerubians of Ashkahet. However, their defiance awakened an old force. A dormant Titan construct reactivated, seeking to punish the Earthen for abandoning their sacred edicts. The newly formed Storm Riders, in their first true test of battle, rode into the fray and shattered the construct. When they returned to Dornogal, victorious and hardened by battle, Alleria watched them with quiet pride. They had proven themselves in fire and steel, and now they stood ready for the war to come. Widow Arachni arrived with urgent news, delivering a message to Alleria. She had uncovered a new lead that could be vital in their cause. Having learned from her last expedition to Ashkahet, which ended with mixed results, Alleria chose to send Lily and Voss and an adventurer in her stead. When they returned, Voss reported troubling findings. Ansarek's forces were transporting black blood into Hallowfall, and worse, Xal'atath possessed the ability to seize control of any ascended Nerubian at will. Taking swift action, Alleria entrusted a missive to the adventurer from High Speaker Brenth, who sought to contribute to the war effort by restoring an ancient golem manufacturing facility within the Ringing Deeps. When the facility was successfully brought back online, Alleria was pleased, recognizing that these constructs could rival the power of Ansarek's Ascended. But Xal'atath did not wait idly. As Beledar shifted towards Shadow, she launched an all-out assault on the Arathi. Alleria and her forces rushed to Hallowfall to reinforce General Steelstrike's embattled troops. The battle raged, but as the clash intensified, an unease settled over Alleria. Something wasn't right. Then she remembered Khadgar's final words. This isn't the real fight. Trusting her instincts, she channeled her powers to pierce the veil of reality and tapped into the unseeming. Through the rippling shadows, she saw the truth. The black blood was not simply a weapon. It was being moved toward the Priory of the Sacred Flame. Xal'atath's true goal had never been Hallowfall. It had been the Priory all along. Wasting no time, she turned to Turalyon, informing him that she knew where the Harbinger was. He insisted they face Xal'atath together, but Alleria shook her head. He needed to stay behind and win this battle. She would deal with Xal'atath. Gathering Anduin, Farron, and an adventurer, they took the Dawnbreaker and set their course for the Priory. Upon arrival, they found the once holy grounds consumed by darkness. The Priory was wreathed in shadow, its flame barely holding back the corruption. To push forward, they lit the ancient braziers, forcing back the encroaching void. As they advanced, their path was barred by Queen Neferis, the Broken Queen, a once proud ruler now ensnared by Xal'atath's influence. They clashed in a vicious battle, but as the fight wore on, it became clear that Neferis was resisting the Harbinger's hold. Rather than slay her, they subdued her, freeing her from Xal'atath's grip. With the way clear, Farron remained outside to hold off the enemy, while Alleria and her allies pressed into the depths of the Priory. There they found Xal'atath, standing before the Dark Heart, weaving Beledar's essence into its corrupted power. She greeted them with a knowing smile, her voice laced with amusement as she spoke of mortals, of their insatiable hunger for violence, their endless cycle of destruction. She had watched them across the ages, fascinated by the wrath they so often unleashed in the name of justice. Then, the realization struck Alleria. Xal'atath had lured them all to Khazalgar, not just for chaos, but to fuel the Black Blood itself. This was all part of her grand design, but Alleria would not allow it to unfold. Raising her bow, she took aim. Xal'atath chuckled, unfazed. "You cannot kill me," she mused. Alleria smirked. "I wasn't aiming at you." She released the arrow, sending it hurtling toward the Dark Heart. Xal'atath's smirk faded as she lunged to intercept it. But she was too late. The arrow struck true, cracking the artifact's surface, causing its immense power to leak out uncontrollably. Furious, Zalatath seethed, declaring that Alleria had changed nothing. Then in a whirl of void energy, she vanished. But as the shadows of her departure faded, something else emerged. An injured raven, battered and weak, flew through the dying portal. And before their eyes, the bird twisted and morphed, shifting into the form of Khadgar. Alleria barely had time to react before his body collapsed. She ran to him, but his form was already fading. Slipping beyond the reach of the living, desperation clawed at her. But before she could lose him once more, Anduin stepped forward. As Beladar's light returned, the golden radiance surged through him, and for the first time in too long, he felt the light answer his call. With its healing touch, he reached for Khadgar, and this time, the old mage did not slip away. The battle was far from over, but hope, fragile as it was, had not been lost yet. Outside, they reunited with their allies, and for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Alleria allowed herself to savor the victory. Zalatath had been dealt a blow, and though she would undoubtedly return, they had earned a moment of respite. The battle had not been in vain. Later, in the halls of Foundation Hall in Dornogal, Alleria and Khadgar sat together, finally able to speak without the weight of war pressing down on them. Khadgar revealed the truth of his survival, how he had transmuted himself into pure arcane energy, allowing himself to be drawn into the Dark Heart. He had placed his faith in Alleria, just as he had when they charged through the dark portal all those years ago. He had known she would find a way to free him. But the spell had come at a cost. The ordeal had left him weakened, and now he was bound to a wheelchair, a masterfully crafted gift by Archmage Modera. Alleria, never one to miss an opportunity, couldn't help but tease him about whether he harbored feelings for the mage. Khadgar merely chuckled, shaking his head at her antics. Despite the victory, a dark presence still lingered beneath Hallowfall, gnawing at the edge of Alleria's senses. Unwilling to ignore the threat, she sent an adventurer to investigate. When they returned, accompanied by Monty Gaslow, the news was worse than she expected. Jaster Gallywix had resurfaced, drilling deep within the ringing deeps for something unknown. But they had not faced this revelation alone. They had been aided by Orwena, a mystic who had defied Heronor tradition and revealed herself, guided by visions she could not ignore. Alleria regarded the newcomer with interest and gratitude, thanking her for intervening when the reckoning crashed. If Orwena's visions were tied to Azeroth herself, then they could not be ignored. Without hesitation, she directed her to Magni Bronzebeard, believing that whatever truths lie ahead, the speaker would be the one to decipher them.
Well, best be setting sail to Ironforge. No sense in dawdling.
Are you sure about staying Dalaran? You could return home with us and study there.
I'm sure, Ma. There's still so much knowledge here, yet to be discovered.
And knowing you, you'll find it all. Keep out of trouble. And make sure Brinth always knows where you are.
Yes, Mum.
Ah, and who is this?
I am called Orwena. I've been told you too have heard the voice of the goddess.
Goddess? You mean Azeroth? Aye, I was her speaker for many years, but she's let me go from that service.
Her voice has led me far from my home, seeking a truth I know she wishes to reveal. But my kin, they do not understand.
Aye, it can be lonely following a path that others can't see. But don't make the same mistake I did, putting it all on yourself. Look for those who will walk the path with you. If I've learned anything, it's that we'll always need each other to not lose ourselves on the journey.
You are kind, Magni. I will consider your words carefully.
Best of luck to you, Orwena. One day, when you found what you're looking for, I hope you too find your way home.
In the wake of battle and uncertainty, Alleria and the Sons of Lothar finally gathered for their long-awaited reunion, choosing to celebrate the Feast of Wintervale in their hidden sanctuary, a place beyond Zalatath's reach. For one night, war and shadow were set aside in favor of camaraderie and remembrance. Among the attendees was the Orc Eitrig, who had recently begun working with Daneth Trollbane to ease tensions in the Arathi Highlands. His presence was a testament to how much the world had changed since the wars of old. Upon Alleria's arrival, Turallion greeted her warmly, conveying Erator's regards and asking if she would spend the night with him after the feast. A rare, genuine smile touched her lips as she agreed. As the celebration carried on, laughter and old stories filled the air, rekindling the bonds forged through hardship and sacrifice. Yet even in this moment of peace, Alleria's thoughts lingered on the war still unfinished. Xal'atath had been stopped, but not destroyed. The Harbinger would return. It was only a matter of time. Sensing the weight on her mind, her friends rallied around her, offering warmth and reassurance. For tonight at least, they reminded her that victory was not only measured in battles won, but in the moments of joy shared between them. And for the first time in what felt like ages, Alleria allowed herself simply to be, to laugh, to reminisce, and to hold on to the light, however fleeting, in the company of those she trusted most. Having received word from Rowena about the presence of Blackblood and Ethereals in Undermine, Alleria wasted no time in making her way to the city. Upon arrival, she was halted by customs agents, their obstruction little more than a nuisance. With the swift intervention of Azeroth's champions, they were dealt with, clearing the path forward. Joined by Gazlo, Renzik the Shiv, and the champions, Alleria ventured deeper into the city, seeking out Marin Noggenfogger at the Vat Works. The area was crawling with the Dark Fuse enforcement, but with a well-placed distraction, they managed to evade their patrols. Marin revealed that answers lay within Venture's Khajiit mines, an opportunity too important to ignore. While the others pressed forward, Alleria chose to remain behind, ensuring Marin's safety before rejoining the fight. Before long, chaos erupted as the Steamwheel laboratories came under siege. Ethereal, seemingly under the command of Phase Thief Azir, launched their attack. Fighting alongside the champion, Alleria cut through the invaders, destroying the phase resonances they had established. The devices had been meant to summon reinforcements and communicate with their commanders. But as the last one shattered, a grim realization struck her. The Ethereals had already found what they were looking for. The Dark Heart was an Undermine. Regrouping with Marin, she learned that Gallywix had taken hostages, including Marin's wife, and was holed up where the Dark Heart resided. Before they could act, Phase Thief Azir made his move, boldly declaring that the Ethereals would soon claim their prize. As Alleria set off in pursuit of Azir, Gazlo, Renzik, and the champions rushed to free the captives. Despite her relentless pursuit, Azir remained one step ahead. Before she could stop him, he seized the Dark Heart from Gallywix's grasp and vanished into the shadows. The artifact had slipped through her fingers, but the chase was far from over. Determined not to let the Ethereals wield such power unchecked, Alleria set out once more, vowing to track them down, no matter the cost. And that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. Thanks for checking it out. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Do take care of yourself.